Samaire Armstrong is a conservative actress from Hollywood, and in this incredible interview that we're going to be taking a look at here, she really dives into a lot of the insanity that is going on in Hollywood, and it is really good stuff. So we're going to be taking a look at what she has to say in this video here. She is someone who has had courage to stand up to a lot of the neo-Marxist nonsense that is going on in Hollywood, and that is a really cool thing to see. And in this interview that she did with PragerU, she has a lot of really good stuff to say, and I think that you guys are going to really appreciate what she says here. So this isn't my first video that I've done about her, and hopefully it won't be the last. So let's go ahead and check out some of the stuff that she has to say here in regards to Hollywood, the state of things over there, and she really does expose a lot of the stuff that is happening over there, and it's really good. So let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Over the last 6 years, I've heard nonstop, they're not looking for white. It's going to diverse. They liked you, but you're white. And, you know, I kept that to myself in silence because on the one hand, it's like, hooray, like, great, diversity is finally here. Oscars were so white for decades, you know?
Which, of course, is another thing where, you know, the Oscars were so white, and then, you know, they decided to bring on a black host, Kevin Hart, and then basically Kevin Hart got canceled for tweets that he made 8 years ago, so then they fired him from the Oscars, which just goes to show that they don't really care about bringing on more diversity or anything else, especially when those in question of the diversity happen to be making jokes or having opinions that they don't like. So, anyway. Let's continue.
But the pendulum has swung so far. I think nowadays it's different for the sake of being different because it's politically correct. You know, like, we're gonna fit this transgender character in here now that we're PC. Natural organic stories stopped being told, and you had to make a checklist of what was acceptable. You know, all the nuances of art disappeared, and shouldn't it be about talent?
Boom. And that is, of course, one of my biggest gripes with Hollywood. I have many gripes with Hollywood, obviously. But one of my gripes about them is that they don't really seem to be looking to tell good stories these days in most cases. Obviously, they are still producing some films that are really good. But for the most part, a lot of the nonsense, a lot of the garbage that is coming from Hollywood isn't focused on telling good stories. They are just purely driven by propaganda, by pushing an agenda, a narrative, the Hollywood narrative, a narrative that is very neo-Marxist, anti-American, and they're trying to use that message as much as they can to try to destroy the foundations of this country and what make this country so great. And Hollywood absolutely knows this, and they are trying to do everything they can with that, and they're pushing the envelope. They're absolutely trying to push it as much as they can. We all know this. We all see it in our movies that we're going to watch in theaters and everything else, and even at home, we see all of these messages, even if they're subtle. We see them, and if you aren't seeing them, then you should definitely be paying more attention to the entertainment that you are watching.
Shouldn't it be about merit or capability or effective storytelling or emotional presence? You gotta want.
And of course, that's exactly the symptom. I mean, it's just like such a prime example of our culture in general right now here in America, where things aren't based on merit. Things aren't based on your character. Things aren't based on your personality or anything else, your actions. Things are simply based right now in our country, in a lot of cases, inside of Hollywood and outside of Hollywood, on your skin color and who you sleep with, and what you have between your legs. And that absolutely should not be the case. That shouldn't be what we allow to affect our opinions or judgments on people. Because that isn't necessarily the stuff that matters in most cases. Most of the time, it really does depend on the person's character, their merit, their talents, and those things should be the things that we judge people on, depending on the situation, obviously. But yeah.
Wonder what's the point of acting school and putting this time into developing the craft if that doesn't matter anymore? We aren't able to be authentic. We're not allowed to question anything or converse.
Talking about conservatives in Hollywood, I believe.
About things. We're literally forced to be silenced. If you don't emulate what they expect you to. You are a racist, a bigot, you have privilege so you'll never understand. We're talking about this authoritarian dictatorship of how things should operate. And we're existing within that in Hollywood. It's like these quotas need to be met, and that's a story. That's acceptable. We can't be canceled. But the reality is, like, you're cutting people off left and right, and there is no actual life and natural creation in this story at all. Like, what are we feeding our society when we're creating narratives like this?
And of course, Hollywood knows exactly what they're feeding our society with those types of neo-Marxist, anti-American, anti-Christian type of narratives. And it's not just happening in Hollywood, it's happening across, you know, the entire spectrum of the establishment when it comes to big tech and social media, the mainstream media, and everything else. You know, you have to speak their narrative. You have to align yourself to their narrative, or you run the risk of being destroyed, of being canceled, of being silenced. And we're seeing that happening more and more. You know, this is coming from someone who has been demonetized here on YouTube for giving my opinions on things. And so I totally understand and I totally get it. So, you know, it's obviously a huge problem, a huge fascist type of mindset that is continually growing more and more here as well.
But there's this expectation that you're supposed to show up to these places and get in sync and in line with these people and this left agenda, or you're the enemy. So,
and you know, I'm called racist all the time, and I'm called sexist all the time, and nothing could be further from the truth. When it comes to people calling me racist and stuff, I am way less racist than anybody else here, because I just want people to be based on, you know, their merit. I want people to be based on who they are on the inside, like what Martin Luther King Jr. wanted in the beginning of the civil rights movement and everything else. That is what I think people should be based on. I don't think that people should be judged on their skin color, no matter who it is, across the board. But of course, that is not the narrative that Hollywood wants out there.
During COVID, I noticed that everyone's primal fears were being triggered. And I started on social media seeing this story of persecution of Black people in our country. And I was like, how did I miss this? Like, this was supposed to be existing this whole time. Was I not listening? And I was reactive. And I think my primal fear was tapped into feeling like I missed something, right? I want to help. I want to be a part of. I want to support.
So then she kind of talks about how, you know, she started to question things, because there was obviously a very clear, blatant narrative that was being fed to us across social media and Hollywood and everything else, with everything that was going on with this apparent Black persecution that was going on. And Samaire looked at it and was like, wait a second, I should probably look into this more and actually think for myself, instead of just gobbling and taking in whatever narrative is being fed to me. Which is of course what we should all do. We should all be that way. We shouldn't just take whatever narrative is being fed to us by the establishment, which doesn't have the best interests of us in mind. The only people that they have the best of interest for is themselves, is more power for themselves.
Told to fund the police movement, like the people that are hurting the most are the same people that you pretend to be caring for. Black communities, minority communities, they're the ones who are now getting the policemen and women ripped out of there by cutting the funding of their departments. Like, the crime is going up. Do you actually care what's going on? Our streets are on fire. Why isn't anyone saying anything? And I kept looking around, waiting for someone to be like, hey, this is weird, guys. Let's just take a moment. And no one was. And I felt like I had to do it. I kept calling my dad and saying, this is wrong. Like, what's happening is wrong. I really feel compelled to say something. And as you know, my dad's raised me since I was 5 years old to be this warrior. And I had to speak out, and he encouraged me to do just that. And
so, you know, she has had the courage to actually speak out. And this is something that I've been trying to encourage more and more people from Hollywood to do. I think that is very, very important right now, because Hollywood is absolutely the main IV into the culture at this point, and whatever messages are being fed into the culture from Hollywood are the things that are going to have the biggest impact on our culture. And the messages that are being fed to our culture right now from Hollywood are not good messages, not even close. So, you know, we need more people from Hollywood who are willing to take a stand against the insanity that is going on there.
Platform, Perez Hilton and every other one, saying that I was, you know, a white.
So after she spoke out for the first time and stuff, she received a lot of blowback for that, obviously, which is something that we can expect at this point.
Whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, and not to have to fear not having a job because of a difference in political beliefs.
Cancel culture.
I think the most important thing is there's a voice within us that helps us navigate right from wrong. And right now we're being forced to listen to voices outside of us. So what your manager says, or what your agent says, or what your fear says about if you were to speak out, what would happen. But inside you know what's right and what's true. And it's not because a bunch of people agreed upon it being right or true. And I think more than anything, that's the voice that we have to start listening to and allowing to come out of you. You probably feel like you're the only one. You probably feel like you're in isolation. I felt that way for years. I thought I was the only conservative in Hollywood. And having spoken out, I've got this amazing group of people around me now who share my values and beliefs and think the same way. And I'm not alone. I'm not.
So anyway, I do recommend that you go and listen to the entire interview over there on PragerU if you want to. It is really good stuff. Really good message from Samaire Armstrong, and I think that we can all absolutely benefit from what she has to say there. And it's something that is very applicable. It's something that we can all relate to right now as we're continuing to see the fascist type of mindset rising in our culture right now from the establishment that obviously includes like big tech and Hollywood and everything else, the people who are in power. And, you know, they want you to believe what they want you to believe. They want you to have the opinions that they want you to have. And those aren't good things. That isn't how America should be. We should be a place where we're all free to have our own opinions, and you shouldn't have to worry about losing your job for having a type of political viewpoint or whatever else. So anyway, this is really good stuff, and I highly recommend that you go watch the interview. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Subscribe for new, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
With my heart's desire.